start with this. 70% of the Bible is story.
Yeah.
And there are things that your spouse knows about you without question. They may know that you have a history of past abuse, or that you had an alcoholic father, or that your mother was very doting upon you in a way that she didn't seem to engage the other children in the family in the same way. We may know facts, but facts do not change us. I mean, I can hear that a terrible, plane accident occurred and 87 people were killed, and I can feel a degree of, oh, that is so sad. But you will not truly enter into real grief till you see the face, till you hear the name and something about at least a few of the people who died. We are storied people, and we are changed by the engagement with story. But what I also find is that most couples, and that's a pretty strong statement. When I say most, I mean like in the high 90s, don't share stories, particularly of trauma, particularly of where you felt vulnerable, where you felt shame, where you felt exposed and incompetent,
Yeah.
where you were bullied. We may know the facts, but we have not given our spouse the access to those stories because we don't want access to the stories that linger with some degree of heartache and shame. So, one of the things about a marriage that is intended is that a marriage is meant to take on shame. It's meant to take on the structure of judgments that we have made against ourselves or others have made against us, or even more importantly, what the kingdom of evil has brought against you. And if there is not that furrowing of the ground, meaning cutting the ground up to prepare for good seed, then we're not going to grow, not in the way we were meant to. So, in that sense, the question can be put as simply, what are the top three stories
Yeah.
that shaped you? How much does your spouse know? Not the
Yeah.
facts, but context, character, plot. In other words, will you let yourself suffer your story and allow your spouse to join you? And that's what I mean by leave your mother and father. And not ignore, but leave, not let it go. Engage the stories of heartache, shame, trauma. Then let there be a union with your spouse, which means when Paul says in Romans 12, verse 15, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Do you let your spouse rejoice with you? Do you let your spouse weep with you? Without that intensity of laughter and tears, I don't think the soil ever gets soft enough to take good seed.
And Dan, just a little follow up on that. I think for some of us, the safest place we found to own our stories has been in a therapeutic community or in a recovery setting before our spouses. I know that was for me. I felt safer in a therapeutic office or in a recovery group than I even did to go to my wife Tracy and say, here's my story, because the shame was so high. I would
Oh,
say that's a benefit of group and therapy. I mean, maybe speak to that. And Nick,
Oh, I'm with you 100%.
yeah,
We don't, but thank God that God does not
yes,
require us to be thrown into the deep end of the water where there
right,
are sharks
yeah,
without some degree, shall we say, of mutual collegial friendship support.
yeah,
So a lot of times our courage grows to name what's true, and then we get the privilege of being
yeah,
able to come back to the one relationship that feels even more threatening than a
yeah.
small group or working with a therapist. So, as the brilliance of your point, Rodney, is it's just so crucial for people to hear. You're not going to do this quick. You're not
Yeah,
going to do this without others, but you need to grow with your spouse in
yeah.
what you have
Hmm.
gained in the context of your work with
Yeah.
others.